It's a fundamental part of the human condition to love and to be loved. Instinctively, when others hurt, we hurt too. We're intrinsically connected to one another as families, friends, neighbors, and communities, near and far. The truth is, we're all in each other's lives to improve each other's stories. We're wired to care deeply about one another. And it's this empathy that builds the foundation for meaningful lives. In the coming moments, you'll learn about some incredibly brave children and young adults, and you'll be inspired by the profound love and tenacious actions of their parents and dedicated scientists to improve their lives. You'll root for them while realizing that you can help change their stories through immediate actions, small and large, so that their stories end in a better place. Their journey is your journey, our journey together, because their story is at a turning point filled with hope and possibilities to change future therapies for rare diseases. This turning point involves unprecedented ramifications for changing the game in personalized medicine by breaking barriers in the current ecosystem for drug development. And this goes beyond rare diseases to human health at large. So, let us begin. Imagine the elation of holding the perfect baby boy in your arms after you give birth. A day later, your son is wheeled in a crib with a large sticker on it that has a line through a picture of an ear. You wonder what that means. Your beautiful newborn child is profoundly deaf. Your heart beats rapidly, as does your mind, thinking of nothing but his future. Now imagine that after addressing this hearing loss with a surgically placed cochlear implant, hours of auditory speech therapy, numerous adaptive technologies, and other life adjustments, your son is hearing, speaking, and doing well in school. Your family is coping as well as possible with this disability. Just as you're breathing a bit better and sleeping at night, you suddenly learn that in addition to his deafness, your resilient, highly adaptable son will also lose his sight. Even though your gut told you that something was off with his night and peripheral vision, shock waves hit your nervous system and blood leaves your head when medical professionals confirm that he has a rare genetic disease. Do you tell him he will someday be blind? When do you tell him? Your heart hurts, not for you, but for him. This is reality for Rachel and Jared Root, parents of Zachary. Let's meet them. Zachary lights up a room with his exuberance and charisma. You immediately know he has a strong intellect by way of his humor and innate curiosity. He talks a lot and draws you in with his infectious smile and bright eyes. You would never know that he has Usher syndrome type 1F. Usher syndrome 1F is a cruel disease because children with this syndrome are born profoundly deaf and struggle with balance and night vision. But the saddest part of this devastating disease is that these children also lose all of their vision over time. Most parents don't learn about the sight loss part of the syndrome due to retinitis pigmentosa until long after they've learned to cope with their children's deafness. This is because their children are not properly diagnosed at birth, and until now, so little has been known about this disease. This was certainly the case with the Roots.
When Zachy was born, he was born deaf, and they had us test right away for something called Connexin 26, which is the most common non-syndrome. It's just hearing loss.
Right.
And it wasn't Connexin 26. And then I was sick to my stomach, and my surgeon was like, why are you sick to your stomach? He doesn't appear syndromy. He doesn't, everything looks normal. We had at that time get his kidneys tested, his heart tested, his this, everything came back normal. So he's just hearing loss, and 50% of the people don't know why they have hearing loss, which is now really not true.
First brought him to our room, we're waiting for him, and they rolled him in, and there's a sign on
The bassinet.
on the bassinet, and the sign was, an ear and a line through it,
Really?
meaning lost.
And you saw that before anybody
I saw that
explained it?
before anything.
Wow.
And I said, why is that on there? What's the problem? And that's
Wow.
when they said, oh, he failed his hearing test.
And I literally slid off the chair. I couldn't get it. And my mom didn't know what to do because now here I am completely suffering. And we didn't know anything about cochlear implants. I never knew anybody with hearing loss. And then I'm crying.
Nobody in your family with hearing loss,
Nobody.
either of your families?
There's no connection
Nothing.
with anybody.
Yeah.
Due to challenges with balance, Zachary has difficulty playing sports and navigating some common neighborhood games. But that doesn't stop him from creating deep connections with friends, family, and others. He's taken up many hobbies, including painting, acting, and growing herbs with his dad. Zachary is also a young entrepreneur. While on family vacations, he paints nature scenes and other things and sells his creations on the dock. One of Zachary's greatest assets is certainly his parents. They've worked tirelessly to ensure that Zachary's life is as normal as possible, while hiding their suffering and dread over the knowledge that Zachary faces total blindness in his future.
You hope for just easy, just, all right, it's hard to explain, but, just a fulfilling life, an exciting life, things to look forward to, and then you get slammed with something that you don't know anything about. Nobody in the family is deaf. Nobody can help us or explain other than going through these tests. But it was just us kind of feeling that
Right.
loneliness, thinking about what's next. Like, we just had a kid. We were so excited. We tried for so long, right? And everything was
And he was
kind
so
of-
beautiful and so perfect
air
and
was
so
left out of the
wanted.
balloon. Right.
And I was like, I didn't have coffee. I didn't have this. I had I felt, and then any other kid I would see, I would be like, mad. It was like, what did I do to deserve, what
Right.
did Zachy do
Isn't
to
that such a
deserve?
female
you don't wanna
thing?
put
Like,
that
what
on
did I do
film.
wrong
What did I
during my
do
diet
wrong?
or something?
And then it was like we sort of fixed it. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of like now this new norm. Like he has this here, we could live with this. Like this is manageable. Like he's doing
Right.
amazing. And
So fast forward.
Yeah.
When did
So-
you get the dreadful news about Ashwin?
I had a bad feeling from that 30-day mark.
You did.
And everyone told me I was crazy.
Tell us about Zachary. What? Tell us about him.
He's, I always say, he's the boy that stole my heart. He is something special. He is. From the time he was born, he just was that easy, happy, smiley, funny. He's just special. He's amazing. He really is. I mean, I know he's mine and maybe I'm biased, but
Yeah.
I really think so. And he, everything that he's been through in his little life, he just overcomes, and it's like he amazes us. He's creative, he's talented.
Rather than sitting idle while anticipating this dreaded outcome, they've stepped up to try to change it. Now let's meet the Chaikoff family. Rachel and Jessica Chaikoff are sisters, and both of them have Usher 1F syndrome. Shortly after Rachel was born, she was completely unresponsive to a piercing smoke alarm, and in that moment, her mother Melissa knew she was deaf, even when she was told that she was overreacting. Like Rachel Root, Melissa's journey began at that precise moment of gut awareness that only mums understand. Following Rachel's formal diagnosis of profound deafness, Melissa and her husband, Dr. Elliot Chaikoff, made a brave but informed decision to enroll her as one of 200 children in a cochlear implant clinical trial not yet approved by the FDA. After research and gut instincts, their decision was life-changing for Rachel. The implant, combined with years of work with an auditory verbal therapist and Melissa's dedication to immerse Rachel in language at home, she learned how to listen and how to speak. While mastering language skills, she was mainstreamed into school, enjoyed watching television without captions, listened to music, and talked on the phone with friends. Later, she graduated from high school with honors, traveled to France for 5 weeks on her own, and then got accepted with a scholarship into the Savannah College of Art and Design. Similar to the Roots, just as life opportunities seemed endless for Rachel, she was diagnosed with Usher 1F syndrome and told that she would become blind. As an aspiring artist, this news was devastating. Hearing this news felt as if a giant rock knocked me off a mountain and I had to climb back up to the top all over again, said Rachel. But given her tenacious personality and fierce drive, Rachel went on to graduate from Savannah College of Art and Design, summa cum laude with a BA degree in photography. After that, she began an MA in anthropology in London, joined the Peace Corps in Cameroon, fell in love, married the love of her life. She then landed a dream job in international development. To say she is an overachiever is an understatement. During all of this, Rachel lost the ability to drive, restricting not only where she could live, but her overall independence. And she lives with an unknown time frame for total sight loss, racing to see as many beautiful things around the world as she can. Rachel worries that her husband will become overburdened with her care and longs for a therapy or drug that will halt the progression of the disease, not only for herself, but for all others. Her sister Jessica is also unstoppable. Jessica melts your heart due to her zest for life and a magnificent smile. She learned how to overcome more obstacles than many of us face in a lifetime as a toddler, not only by watching her sister, but also modeling her determined parents. Jessica developed an ironclad will to create a vision beyond her circumstances and is currently pursuing her dream in the social sciences with a career centered on superior health for everyone. She has been accepted to multiple prestigious institutions for doctoral work towards this end, and she will soon select one of her offers. Growing up, Jessica felt like a normal child and excelled in a mainstream school environment. But Jessica's challenges were things that her classmates and teachers took for granted, such as difficulty hearing in noisy cafeterias, hearing during group work sessions in loud classrooms, and most of all, fitting in with her peers.
I want to add, one of the challenges I had was pool parties growing up. When I was in elementary school, all my friends would invite me to pool parties. And they put games like Marco Polo, and you couldn't hear, so you'd be kind of off to the side. And I remember several years ago, one of my friends said, "Oh, I had a pool party, but I chose not to invite you because you couldn't hear." And so that just often felt very frustrating. And so it came to a point where I either just didn't go or didn't care.
She is one of the kindest, most considerate people I know. She does my laundry. She empties the dishwasher. But beyond that, she just truly has kindness and compassion for other people, empathy. That I think, is who she would have been anyway. But coping with what she is with Usher syndrome has made her even more so.
She's very deeply committed and really wants to make a difference in the world and leave the world a better place. There are a few people who I know who work as hard at Jessica to really excel at all that she pursues. She doesn't like to be second best. She really, really wants to be perfect and to work as hard as she can to get the job done. Mm-hmm. So I think all of us are so incredibly proud of all that she's achieved, and I'm certainly very confident of the great things that she's going to do, in her life, in her career.
Thank you.
On a recent visit with a friend to the planetarium at the Boston Museum of Science, the guide pointed to the Ursa Major, one of Jessica's favorite constellations, and she couldn't see it. This was a sneak preview of what's to come for her. Like Zachary, the Chekhov girls are blessed with extraordinary parents who refused to accept the fate of this disease and therefore started a foundation, the Usher 1F Collaborative to find a cure. Their father, Elliot, with both an MD and a PhD, is chair of the Department of Surgery and Surgeon-in-Chief at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. He also serves as the Johnson & Johnson Professor of Surgery at Harvard Medical School. Elliot's medical and research expertise, combined with Melissa's previous experience in the nonprofit sector, positioned them well for this ambitious endeavor. The Chaykoffs enlisted the help of the Roots and others, who, like them, have a vision for not just their own children, but for all children and adults struggling with this disease. They galvanized parent teams to help do the work. One of those parents is Laurie Shapiro, whose beautiful daughter Dory has the syndrome. Dory's magnanimous personality immediately captures your attention. She graduated from the University of Arizona and currently works as a manager at an internet publishing company in San Francisco, committed to helping all students learn. Like Zachary, Rachel, and Jessica, she too was born deaf and unaware that she had Usher 1F syndrome until she was 15.
You are a very special person, an absolute delight. I have often wondered why it is that people are drawn to you. Yes, you're charming. Yes, you're witty. But I've concluded it's your beauty. Not in the looks department, although you are stunning. It's that you have a beautiful soul. Dory, you don't always pronounce every word perfectly, but you always choose the perfect words to say.
While on holiday, Dory and her family read a news article highlighting some of the symptoms of Usher syndrome type 1F. Dory was experiencing similar symptoms, especially with her eyes. They immediately sought out a retinal specialist who confirmed their worst nightmare. Dory did, in fact, have Usher 1F. As a highly determined and fiercely independent young woman, Dory felt she could cope with this too, just as she had always coped with her hearing disability. She made an important promise to herself to stay positive and honest about her challenges, asking for help when needed. And this is exactly what she's been doing for the past 17 years. But Dory's journey is not without challenges. One of her first sacrifices was giving up driving at night during college. Luckily, her amazing support system, including her parents, brother David, sister-in-law, and sorority sisters, provided her with rides, arms to help her walk in the dark, and assistance navigating crowds at parties and restaurants. Dory always found creative ways to stay active and socially connected. But her peripheral vision continued to worsen, and she later had to give up driving altogether, which was a very responsible decision, but a huge blow to her, severely limiting her independence. Knowing she could not navigate her hometown of Scottsdale, Arizona without complete dependence on her family, she made the difficult decision to move to San Francisco with much better public transportation. Dory accepts her challenges, never playing victim, and does her best to remain positive every day, carrying out her professional responsibilities and social obligations. Her outlook and positive energy are immediately evident, but inside, she, like the others in our story, carries the burden of knowledge that she will lose her sight. She doesn't know when, but she knows it's coming. Her mum, Laurie, is one of her best champions and serves on the board of the collaborative. Like the other parents featured, Laurie is actively in the game, fighting for a cure. Imagine that you see what's in front of you, but everything above, below, and around you goes black. It's like you're looking through a narrow tube or a tunnel. This is how it feels to have tunnel vision, a loss of your peripheral vision, says Dory. Like Zachary, Rachel, Jessica, and Dory, Aaron Butler Sloss and his parents did not let his profound hearing loss impede his life. He began riding horses at age 3 to help his balance, He learned how to clean stables and care for horses while riding at a friend's ranch. When he was 5, he was sought by a modeling agency and eagerly participated in many auditions. His mum said this experience helped him build confidence and the ability to overcome rejection early in life. His parents knew that he was very bright. He would read a book a day. At one point, one of his teachers insisted he read less and go outside. Part of this related to his discomfort navigating outdoor obstacles. When Aram was 8, during a car ride to school, his father told him that one day, in several billion years, the sun would stop burning and that would be the end of the world. Later that day, his mum received a call from school telling her that Aram spent every spare minute in the library looking up books on the solar system, trying to find out if there was any way life could exist somewhere else. This began his love of astronomy. A year later, a family friend sought out Aram to audition for a role on a new TV show about young people with extraordinary intelligence and unique interests. To begin, the production team wanted to ask Aram questions about space over the phone. Due to his hearing disability, his mum wasn't sure he could manage a conversation on a cell phone speaker. Most mums would have worried about their child answering the questions, but Aram nailed every question. He could recite Kepler's laws of planetary motion, the names of all the stars and moons, the return dates of comets, etc. It was amazing to her, but her biggest joy was his simple ability to navigate the phone. The show never came to fruition, but evidence of his incredible mind made his parents more determined than ever to support him in any way possible. This included buying him a large telescope.
So I scheduled a meeting with the optometrist. I got my eyes checked and they were like, that's fine. And I was like, but what about these like concentric circles? Do you know what's going on with those? And the woman who was pretty much taking my vision was like, I don't know, but what I can do for you is I can do like a peripheral vision check and see if that like shows anything. And I was pretty much like sitting in a chair right in front of her, and she was like holding up fingers. She was like, cover one eye, how many fingers am I holding up? And she just like kept putting her hand directly in one of my really big blind spots. And I was like, I can't see your hand like at all. Like it just completely vanishes out of view. I don't see anything. She's like, this is, okay, that is definitely weird. But your symptoms, your lack of peripheral vision, your weakening eyesight, your astigmatism, they all seem to like point to, you know, Usher syndrome. And it's, you know, something that it's like sort of pretty much going blind after a really long time, particularly because you were born with congenital deafness. And well, I mean, I was crying in his office that day because I was like, it felt really unfair to be deaf and then find out that I was going to go slowly blind afterwards. Like I was not really okay with that.
Aram graduated school 1 year early, skipping from 10th to 12th grade by adding AP classes after school at a nearby college. Sadly, his father passed away that year from gastric cancer, just before he graduated high school. Aram graduates this May from Berkeley, majoring in chemistry. His dream job is in forensics. Like all of the others profiled so far, Aram is determined to give back and to help others, as is his mum, who serves on the development committee of the collaborative. Brendan Creamer also has USHA-1F, and unlike the others, Brendan was diagnosed at 22 months, but in his best interest, his parents did not tell him until he was 10. All the while, his mother's heart ached as Brendan could not ride a bike because he couldn't see other cyclists or cars until they were right in front of him. As a teenager, Brendan didn't want to be seen as different or disabled.
A challenge that I used to face when I was a lot younger was I had trouble understanding what people were saying in noisier settings, but that challenge was overcome over the years with various upgrades to my cochlear implant processors. It was like one upgrade allowed me to hear better in one area, and then another upgrade allowed me to hear better in another area. The only other challenge that I can think of in that regard is the fact that if you think about it in a practical sense, I need electricity in order to hear, and so that makes things a little bit difficult when venturing into remote areas with no power. Like, I need to know how long I'll be out in the wilderness in advance so I can pack the appropriate amount of disposable batteries, and so it's I've just over the years I've grown like proactive and organized at like keeping track of exactly how many batteries I have, how many days they'll last, how much I'll need.
Brendan too pushes boundaries for himself, and most of all, he's passionate about helping others. In fact, he is dedicating his career to helping to find the cure for Usher syndrome. When in high school, he was accepted to a prestigious summer research internship program at the University of Iowa for highly qualified students interested in science. During that time, Brendan worked on research at the Institute for Vision Research with faculty at Dr. Edwin Stone's lab. This work involved gene editing and stem cell research to treat genetic blindness due to Usher syndrome and other disorders. Brendan later received his BA in biochemistry and molecular biology from Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. Today, he works in a chemical biology lab at the National Institute of Health as a post-baccalaureate research fellow. Brendan is grateful for the teachers and mentors who supported him to achieve his level of success, and he most certainly will be one of those who contributes to the cure.
Here are some of the other faces of this disease: Juanito, Finley, Andy, Harry, and many others.
Jamie is more advanced in her disease, with progressive vision loss, but still manages to run marathons. She wants nothing more than a cure so she can see the faces of future grandchildren. What all of these people have in common, in addition to a faulty gene by no fault of their own, is fierce determination, supported by highly motivated parents and families who will do anything for them. Their families are not failing them, but the system for addressing drug therapies for rare diseases is failing them. Drug development for rare diseases is complicated. Not only do you need smart researchers who understand complicated pathogenesis, it takes lots of money. The regulatory process is encumbered, and stakeholders have differing interests, particularly in academic research, where there are misaligned incentives such as publishing, personal promotion, and tenure. There is little sharing and no systematic effort to understand the disease. Researchers are competing with one another, and this lack of sharing is pervasive. The ecosystem currently rewards competition rather than collaboration to alleviate suffering. Even though the Orphan Drug Act of 1983 created federal grants and other incentives for rare diseases, and the Human Genome Project, completed in 2003, gave way to gene mapping and new data for development of specialized therapies, these advances are not yet enough for those with USH1F.
The good news is that the team at the USH1F Collaborative is not waiting for the system to change. Instead, they're changing the game as master disruptors, and so far, they're doing it well.
You know, I started talking to him and saying, look, if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it, or we're going to wait, they're going to get left behind.
The way I tell the story is my kids and wife approached me and they said, you know, you may be a Harvard professor and a department chair, but you're sort of worthless to us. So I did what department chairs are very good at, which is I called a meeting, and we formed a 501c3.
Realizing that the math didn't work to motivate Big Pharma, nor were the incentives in place for traditional research approaches in academia, they designed a different pathway. They incorporated a 501c3 nonprofit as the Usher1F Collaborative. And knowing they needed more than just motivated parents, they assembled a highly credentialed board and an international scientific advisory council. They then built a cohesive business plan to attract the right research scientists to work across disciplines and silos towards a common goal, the cure. Their renowned research team includes Drs. Monte Westerfield and Jennifer Phillips at the University of Oregon Institute of Neuroscience, Dr. David Corey from Harvard Medical School, Dr. Zubair Ahmed from the University of Maryland School of Medicine, Dr. Vincent Tropepe, professor in the Department of Cell and Systems Biology and Vice Dean of Research in the Faculty of Arts and Science at the University of Toronto, and others. They also engaged leaders who understand the therapeutic supply chain, from research to clinical trials, through the market and to the end user, the patient.
Well, it was interesting because we had worked for many, many years on the protein that is involved in Usher1F, this protocaterin 15 protein. And so the Usher1F Collaborative, as you know, has occasionally these workshops to try to bring together the experts in the field. And a few years ago, there was one held in Boston. I thought, well, that seems pretty interesting. We should probably go to that. I mean, we know something about this protein. And that was good. The science was good. But the thing that just blew me away was meeting Rachel and Jessica Chaikoff, because I knew what the protein does. I know the sensory challenges that they were both trying to meet. And they were doing such a good job and doing it so bravely that I really felt, we know as much as anyone about this protein, and we really are obligated to try to do something with that knowledge to try to help people with this disease. So one of the things that's actually turned out to be promising is to use what are called human retinal organoids, where the scientist will take a cell that could become a lot of different kinds of things, a stem cell, and give it the nutrients and factors and proteins that will push it towards becoming just one kind of thing, and that is a retinal cell. So we have collaborators in Switzerland who are very good at this, and they can take these cells and over a process of 6 months, slowly coax them to become human photoreceptors in the retina, the ones that are affected in Usher1F. And then we can ask first, where is the protocaterin 15 in those cells? And second, if we take our viral vectors and deliver a normal copy of the protocaterin 15, will it go to the same place in those cells as it's supposed to? And we can ask also, will our viral vector show toxicity? Could it damage those cells in ways that we really didn't expect? So it's been wonderful to be able to have that additional collaboration. And Marina Ivanchenko in my lab has been able to do the electron microscopy on the samples from Switzerland to see indeed that the protocaterin 15 is in the place where we thought, and that our vectors are delivering it to the place where we want. We were so lucky when Marina Ivanchenko came to work with us on this project. Marina was trained as an ophthalmologist, and then she wanted to learn more about how the inner ear works. And she quickly gravitated to the project on Usher1F, which, because of the blindness and the deafness, combined her two interests. But Marina's taken on all sorts of different aspects of the project, from developing the viruses that deliver the therapeutic, to doing the electron microscopy, the animal testing to see whether the hearing has been restored in the mice.
In 8 years, this team has accomplished unprecedented results. They realized a total investment of over 8 million in 8 research labs, where there were none in 2013. They partnered with Foundation Fighting Blindness to initiate a natural history study, an essential step providing necessary data for clinical trials. They developed a zebrafish model, now being used to test gene and drug therapies. They used gene therapy to restore hearing in a mouse model. And, most exciting of all, they now have at least one gene therapy, which is believed to be 3 to 5 years from human testing.
As I said, I follow a lot of these kinds of foundations, and I think I can say unequivocally that the Usher 1F Foundation is done nothing short of amazing over these last few years. And what have they accomplished? So not only have they funded sort of cutting edge research in a number of academic labs, but those researchers have produced. So earlier you heard Melissa say that one of the things that was holding back progress for Usher 1F was the absence of an animal model. Well, the foundation funded several researchers, and now just a few short years later, there are 2 animal models. This is unheard of, I think, in how these foundations operate and how academics progress. Animal models are the rate-limiting step in developing a theory, but that's not just all of it. I think the other big issue when it comes to developing drugs for rare genetic diseases is that oftentimes people don't understand the time course of the disease, how long patients progress. Patients are very different from one another. You heard Melissa and Elliot talk about how the different manifestations of the diseases that their 2 daughters had. So the disease process could be heterogeneous. And so one of the things that people look for, and one of the things that really holds back industry from developing drugs, is understanding the natural history of a disease. How long does it take for patients to progress, and where exactly should you intervene? And so one of the things that the foundation has been able to do is partner with the Foundation for Fighting Blindness and have the Foundation for Fighting Blindness devote their resources to doing a natural history study at Usher 1F. Again, it's really important. It may not be so glamorous as the animal model, but it's extremely important because now you can go to places, to academics and to industry and say, animal model, check. Natural history study underway. Now is the time to develop therapies and get therapies to patients. And so I think the combination of the models and the natural history study I think it's just nothing short of phenomenal.
I think the thing that makes it so successful, and we've seen this in certain other kinds of scientific endeavors, is to be really intent on bringing together all the scientists who are working on the problem and to get them to share the information that they have, whether it's published or not, so that everybody is sort of brought right up to date as soon as there's a discovery, as soon as the meeting is held, and that then makes everybody else's research go faster. So it's this real focus on having the researchers talk to each other and work as a collaborative and not just as individual laboratories. It's really difficult because of the scientists, because they get grants, they get promotions, they get the kinds of rewards for being a scientist when they individually make a discovery. And so naturally, they don't want to kind of share the information if someone else might get credit, because it would take away something that they've worked really hard for. So it really takes a change in the focus of the individual scientist to say, this is more important than my career. We need to be able to share to reach a goal that's going to benefit a lot of people.
So the organization is truly gifted and lucky to have somebody with your focus and your mission about doing that and the why behind your mission. But what are they doing as an organization, in your opinion, to encourage that level of collaboration?
I think it's just the individuals involved, that people like Melissa are so passionate about this, and just by talking with the scientists can really help them feel the importance of the problem. that they're willing to put their own self-interest a little bit to the side for this.
Why the Usher 1F is sort of different from other organizations that are started by parents. Working as an investor, working in startups, working in rare genetic disease, there are many of these foundations. There's a huge Duchenne's Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. Of course, there's a huge Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And so almost every rare genetic disease has sort of a patient advocacy group or foundation associated with it. What's different about Usher and what really attracted me to Usher 1F was really Elliot and Melissa. Because I think you seldom find a situation where not only do you have parents that understand the illness from their family perspective, but you basically have a world-class researcher in Elliot that understands everything that has to do with the cutting-edge science of what the foundation is trying to sponsor and come to pass. I also think that having people on the board like myself that has been involved in developing products for rare genetic diseases, had products approved for rare genetic diseases, and understands sort of the nuances and how research gets translated from an academic lab into a company, into a medical center, is unique among foundations that I'm aware of.
They truly are at a pivot point, on the cusp of huge success. The team is resolute in their vision for a cure, and this has attracted individual, foundation, and corporate donors, such as the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, the Gantz Family Charitable Foundation, Daniel and Eva Abraham, the Ardent Companies, Kellogg's, and many others.
Right now, the collaborative seeks to accelerate their outstanding research to begin human trials as the next crucial step in development of new drug therapies. To make this a reality within the next 3 to 5 years, $10 million is needed.
Frank, if I were an investor that had a history of making transformational gifts in science philanthropy, and I didn't have anybody in my family connected, nobody with Usher 1F or Usher syndrome or even a rare disease, why might I be motivated to invest in this particular organization and its journey?
Because we have a high likelihood of success. And that's a combination of where we've put our money, how we monitored that money, and what we're doing the nuts and bolts work to ensure that a product can get developed. So the short answer is we would be great stewards of your money, and we would make a difference in the lives of patients. It's not just an academic exercise.
But I think from your question as far as where we
wish,
or what we see in, or what we want to see in the next 5 years, from the organization, but what we hope for is what you said. And I think that the next 5 years is so critical for their organization because of where we are right now as far as the research that's happening, the real research that's happening, needs to continue.
Yeah.
And there's enough funds out there through corporations or personal funds that if somebody saw or felt the same we do, and if it was their kid, they'd be doing the same thing.
The reason why it's worth investing in the cure is because not only they would be making a difference in all of our lives and all those living the Usher 1F and those with RP and other types of Usher syndrome, but also people living with rare genetic diseases. And if I'm not mistaken, about 40% of many different genetic diseases are rare diseases. And so that's a huge sizable portion of the population. And so when one cure has been developed for, say, for example, gene therapy, then it can be translated to others. And I can foresee that there will be like a huge domino effect where once has been done, another will be successful, and then it will just explode exponentially. And I would imagine that we would see gene therapy and other types of cure for rare diseases would become the norm and the standard treatment. And I believe gene therapy is the future of medicine.
It just like goes to show that if it is a mutation, then pretty much anyone can get it. So it's not necessarily like you can also think about it from like a very selfish perspective if that's what's necessary, because investing in this kind of thing also, treats RP. It also treats, the big ticket is deafness. If you can treat that, then, you have a whole lot of money on your hands. But there is also a lot to be said about the empathy of, trying to help people. And as Rachel has said, once you develop a treatment for Usher's 1F, you develop a treatment for retinitis pigmentosa, you develop a treatment for other forms of Usher's. If you do it through genetic modification or genetics in general, then you pretty much posit a breakthrough in a lot of medical science and in a lot of biological science.
Usher 1F is so unique and so rare that if they can break through the scientific discovery, but then you literally can help open up the gate, the floodworks for all other eye-related diseases in the world. I think that because they're able to make it so unique, if we're able to make a breakthrough with it, it will help break through a lot of the blocker that a lot of scientists are facing for other Usher syndrome types, and as well other versions of RP. That is my true belief.
After watching this film, one or two of you will make contributions between $100 and $500. Several of you will make gifts ranging from $1,000 to $5,000. One of you will make a $10,000 gift, and another of you will consider a $100,000 commitment. Perhaps one of you has the capacity to make a $1 million gift. All commitments in alignment with each person's ability are important and valued. It takes each of us to weave a tapestry to support the heroes in this story and to write their futures to include the gift of sight. Through the Usher 1F Collaborative, you automatically become part of a much bigger human story. In our world today, with advanced technologies, even one person with a mutated gene is one too many. And if we understand how to replace these genes effectively, we'll change the course of history and disease prevention.
A gift to the Usher 1F Collaborative is transformational, because as a lean and laser-focused organization, dollars go straight to cutting-edge, personalized gene therapies.
Your contribution will help define your own story, which will then be shared with your loved ones and your children and your children's children for generations to follow. At the end of the day, it's all about our interconnectivity. So please, join us in a visionary quest to see forward. I ask you this as a fellow contributor and as the mum of Aram, one of the amazing heroes in our story.